From Zion to Captivity in America. In this video presentation, we unveil a truth long concealed, a story erased from textbooks, buried in colonial archives, denied by mainstream institutions, yet preserved in prophecy. A story written in the bloodline of a people whose suffering, survival, and awakening mirror the words of Moses, the prophets, the apostles, and the ancient writings of Israel. This is not a message of supremacy. This is not a message of division. This is a message of identity, prophecy, history, and awakening. A message for the descendants of those who endured the Middle Passage, plantation slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, mass incarceration, and 400 years of systematic oppression. A people who lost everything except the spark of the covenant within them. As the prophet Baruch said, "In the land of their captivity they shall remember themselves." Baruch 2:30. That remembering is happening now. Let us begin with the prophetic foundation. Deuteronomy 28 describes a covenant people who would lose identity, land, language, heritage, freedom, and dignity. They would be scattered among all nations, their children taken, their lives filled with fear, oppression, and sorrow. They would serve enemies, and most distinctive of all, they would be transported into slavery by ships. Deuteronomy 28:68. "And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen." Only one group in world history fits all the signs: the descendants of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Genesis 15:13-14 foretold 400 years of affliction in a strange land. From 1619 to 2019 is 4 centuries of servitude and oppression in America. Yahusha prophesied in Luke 21:24 that Israel would be led away captive into all nations. After 70 AD, historians confirm that Israelites fled by the hundreds of thousands into Africa. African kingdoms, Arabic historians, and early Christian writers all testify to Israel's presence throughout the continent. But some of the most compelling evidence comes from European scholars themselves, men who had no agenda to support Black identity, yet preserved the truth in their writings. One such figure is John Ogilby, 1600-1676, royal cosmographer to King Charles II of England. Ogilby produced authoritative geographic works such as Africa, 1670, and America, 1671. These were government-commissioned volumes used to educate European elites on the geography and peoples of the world. In Africa, Ogilby writes of, "The Jews are found dispersed over all Africa, especially such as are Black." He notes Israelite communities throughout Guinea-Benin, Senegambia, the Gold Coast, the Portuguese territories of West Africa. He describes them as a people observing many Jewish rites and believed to be Jews descended from the ancient race. John Ogilby was no fringe writer. He was master of the King's Revels for Ireland, royal cosmographer, a cartographer employed by the Crown, publisher of the celebrated Britannia maps. His testimony must be taken seriously. Another scholar, Alan H. Godby, a respected American historian and professor of Oriental history, authored The Lost Tribes, a Myth, 1930. Godby documented Israelite presence in Africa, writing, "There is a vast amount of evidence that Jews have mingled with and become part of the peoples of Africa." He specifically identifies Jews among the Yoruba, the Akan, the Igbo, the Ashanti, the Mandingos, and tribes of the Niger region. Godby also cites early explorers who repeatedly referenced Black Jews or Jews of the coast. Additional scholars add to this trail. Joseph J. Williams, Jesuit-trained anthropologist from Harvard and author of Hebrewisms of West Africa, 1930, provided overwhelming cultural parallels between West African tribes and ancient Israelite customs. He wrote, Numerous customs among the West African peoples are demonstrably Hebrew. These customs include circumcision, separation laws, purity rituals, priestly clans, ark traditions, Hebrew-sounding names, and laws forbidding unclean foods. Another scholar, George Rawlinson, professor of ancient history at Oxford University, wrote in History of Phoenicia and other works that Israelite migrations into Africa were significant, especially after Assyrian and Roman invasions. Rawlinson recorded, "The Israelites retreated in great numbers into the African interior." African scholars also recorded this. Dr. Edwin W. Smith, a British ethnographer of Africa and former president of the Royal Anthropological Institute, wrote that many West Africans have traditions linking their origins to the people of Israel. James B. Pritchard, a scholar from Princeton University and editor of ancient Near Eastern texts, wrote that Israelite refugees often fled into Egypt and beyond during times of war, leaving cultural footprints across Africa. The Apocrypha also preserves this dispersion. 2 Esdras 13, 40-45 describes the northern tribes journeying to a distant land where never mankind dwelt, traveling a long route by water and land, seeking to keep their laws. A clue to far migrations, possibly into Africa and beyond. Baruch 4:6 declares, "Ye were sold to the nations." Baruch 3:8 says, "Behold, we are this day in our captivity." Jeremiah 17:4 foretells, "Thou shalt discontinue from thine heritage." Only one people on earth lost their names, lost their identity, lost their language, lost their family structure, lost their culture, and were forbidden from teaching their heritage. The enslaved Israelites of the Middle Passage. The pseudepigrapha adds even more light. The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs contains dramatic prophecies. The Testament of Judah prophesies that Judah's descendants would face bitter oppression among the nations before being restored. The Testament of Benjamin declares that the tribes will lose identity but be reunited at the end of days. The Testament of Dan warns of a time when Israel will mix with Gentile nations and forget their covenant until a great awakening. These writings perfectly echo what African Americans have endured. Revelation also confirms this narrative. Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 describe people who claim to be Jews but are not, and a true remnant who have been oppressed and marginalized. "I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not. I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." This implies two things. A false identity would rise. The true lineage of Israel would be oppressed, unseen, or scattered. Revelation 7 lists 12 literal tribes sealed at the end times, a sign that the tribes still exist, hidden among the nations. When we return to historical sources, the evidence becomes undeniable. Ogilby saw black Jews throughout Africa. Godby documented black Israelites among many West African tribes. Williams detailed Hebrew customs preserved across West Africa. Mocatta describes Sephardi Jews merging with African Israelites. Windsor traced Judean migrations after 70 AD. Rawlinson identified Israelite settlements deep into Africa. African oral traditions claimed Israelite descent. When European slavers arrived, they captured these very populations. Not random tribes, not isolated villages, but highly structured communities with ancient laws. Ship records labeled some captives as Black Jews, Black Portuguese, Hebrews, Amazigh Jews, Jews of Wida, Jews of the coast. This was not accidental. They knew exactly who they were taking. For 400 years, the descendants of these people endured chains, whips, forced labor, broken families, loss of name, loss of identity, poverty, segregation, redlining, incarceration. And yet, like ancient Israel, they survived. As Isaiah 54 verse 17 says, "No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, As Hosea 1 verse 10 says, "In the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God." Now, a great awakening is happening. The bones are shaking. The scattered are remembering. The covenant is awakening. The remnant is rising. African Americans and the descendants of the slave trade are discovering that they may be more than the world told them. More than slaves, more than a minority, more than victims of oppression. They may be the children of the covenant, the dispersed tribes of ancient Israel, the people of prophecy, the remnant chosen to rise at the end of 400 years. The world may have forgotten your identity, but Yah never did. And now, you are remembering who you are. Rise. Your story is not over. It is just beginning.